Chair, I just got a text from Councillor Anthony Feely. He's having some difficulty. If IT could maybe touch base with him, please.
You hear me now, Chair?
Members, we're just trying to get IT sorted out here at the moment, so if you just excuse that delay. If IT could contact Councillor Anthony Feely, please. Sorry about that delay, members. We're Councillor Robinson. Apologies on behalf of the DUP, please.
No apologies, Chair. Can you hear me, Chair?
Councillor Robinson, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but you mustn't fit to hear me.
I can now hear you, Councillor Robinson. Could you carry on, please? Any
No apologies, Chair, from the DUP.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. The next one is Councillor Mary Garrity on behalf of SDLP.
Thanks very much, Chair. Hope you can hear me all right. Apologies from Councillor Adam Gannon, and I think Paul and John are just going to be logging on a bit late. So that's from SDLP. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now on to single party and independence, and I understand that Councillor Swift has given an apology. So any other apologies from single party or independence?
Chair, I've been contacted by Councillor Stephen Donnelly. He's running a few minutes late, but hopes to be joining us very shortly.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the apologies. We now move on.
All right, Chair. Councillor McLaughlin here, Chair.
Carry on, Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm going to be leaving the meeting shortly before 7:30. I'm going to attend a meeting in the village to do with the pollution of the river. Probably take an hour and I'll be back after that. Maybe you'll have the meeting wrapped up by that, but if you're not, I'll join you again.
I like your optimism, and that's noted. Thank you. I intend tonight, with regard to this meeting, we'll go through the agenda as is, other than any other business, which will move until after confidential. There have been 2 requests for any other business, which I've accepted. So we'll move on now to item 2, the signed minutes and confidential minutes of previous meeting held on 15th September. That I have already done. Item 3 is declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest for tonight? Margaret McLaughlin.
Thank you, Chair. It's the confidential staff report, and I'll be leaving the meeting for that item. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Councillor McAleer.
Yes, Chair. 5.1 as a member of the Disability Advisory Group, and 5.2 and 5.3 as a member of the Rural Affairs Subcommittee. I'm a member of those panels. I don't know if that precludes me from partaking in the discussion or debate, but just to put that on the record. Chair, thank you.
Thank you. I don't think that precludes you estimation anyhow. Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. Declaration of interest 5.1 as a member of the Disability Advisory Group. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, that's noted. No further. Councillor Thompson. Okay, we move on now to the minutes. Councillor Warrington?
Thanks, Chair. I don't think there's any need, but again, 5.1 as Chair of the Disability Advisory Group and also the Rural Affairs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Gurr Margaret again, Howard. Just for clarification, through yourself, Chair, membership of those groups that are council appointed, I don't believe, unless there is pecuniary benefit or other ways that a declaration is necessary. So I see Nuala writing away here mad. I think it's an unnecessary amount of writing. Maybe we could get clarification from the Chief.
Okay, Chair, happy to clarify. No, Councillor Maguire is correct, unless there would be a declaration of interest for other means, namely pecuniary or other personal conflicts of interest. Members wouldn't have to declare by being virtues of, just by being a member of the groups in question.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Yes, because I intend to actually go to those chairs for clarification of minutes and so on. So, we actually now will go to matters arising, and this is the Policy and Resources Committee, Wednesday, the 15th of September. And we'll start with page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. Alison.
Chair, just to highlight to members a letter received from the Department for Communities. This is in response to the Council's request that the scheme of emergency financial assistance be widened and also to give greater flexibility. So members will have seen from the response that the Department is not minded to consider such relaxations at this time, Chair.
Councillor Keenan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, disappointed that Deirdre Hargis paid the support grant by 4 million, which is, as the letter says, 25% before, especially since her department has been allocated 53 million more.
Sorry, that's the
2021
wrong
to
letter,
2022.
Councillor Keenan.
All right, I'm ahead of the game.
You're ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Councillor Curry, you're like to come in, please.
Yes, Gurmagat Cairley, and just I know my party colleague had just raised the point that's on the minutes there the last time around, and just noting that he's late just to the meeting. I think we'd understood at the time, or my party colleague had just pointed out that the emergency financial assistance for flooding from the Department for Communities is provided for householders, and in a similar way then DARA would provide financial support for landowners impacted by flooding. So there was a question there around the Department for Economy, whether they provide any financial assistance to businesses, and I think that's where this arose from, if my recollection serves me correctly, around businesses that were impacted by the recent flooding in the Garrison area that Corrier Feely had raised. So can I just check, because it's just not clear from the minutes. I think it just says that I'm having difficulty getting it up on the screen, Chair, so apologies. But that a copy would be sent to the Economy Minister, but I understood there was a specific request in that regard to the Economy Minister. Could I just check maybe with
Okay, we'll deal with
Executive,
that.
if that's
You're
the case?
proposing to note. So you're proposing
Yeah.
to note.
No,
Okay.
Chair,
Yeah,
just to,
proposed to note.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Oh, and sorry, Councillor Curry, no, just to confirm, Chair, that the correspondence was just copied to the Department for the Economy. There were no specific additional representations made, so the actions were as per the minute there, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Curry, and I'm looking for a seconder to note.
Chair,
Councillor Keenan. Okay. Proposed and seconded.
Chair, just in that
Yeah.
Yes, go on
Chair,
ahead,
if you
Councillor
just
Curry.
allow me then in that regard, because I do believe that was the intention, maybe that representation be made to the Department for Economy, to the Minister for Economy, just around what supports might be available for our local businesses who might have been impacted by extreme flooding events. I know this is it doesn't happen very often that businesses are impacted, but it does happen nonetheless, and just to raise that on behalf of the businesses in the district. I know that my colleague Anthony Feely would want us to do that. Gurmagin.
Okay, so looking at an expedite to the copy that was sent to the.
It's just, if I understand correctly, I think Councillor Curry is saying that specific representations are made to the Minister for
Yes.
the Economy, given the specific impact on businesses in these circumstances.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Proposed and seconded, all agreed. Okay, the next a page that we're dealing with minutes is page 5, page 6.
Chair, just page 6, just the penultimate bullet point there, and just to highlight for members in the correspondence folder, a letter has been received from the Department for Infrastructure regarding the proposed changes to the funding methodology for rural transport groups. As members will have seen, the Minister is not available to meet given the consultation is being considered, or the findings of it, but we have been offered the opportunity to meet with the relevant official. So if the Chair and members of the Rural Affairs Subcommittee were content, Chair, we would proceed to arrange a meeting accordingly.
Anybody seeking in on this? Lost. Hold on, members, I've lost sight of the. That's it. Okay, Councillor Green, sorry about that.
Yeah, that'd be fine with me if that can be accommodated.
Okay, we note and put that forward. Councillor McAleer.
Yes, Chair, this one relates to the correspondence at 6.1, isn't that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, I think it's hugely disappointing, and given that the 7 councils worked together on drafting this letter and making this request, that it came signed
Oh,
off.
sorry.
Sorry, Councillor. No, this letter relates to the first item in the correspondence folder, the letter from the Minister for Infrastructure. We haven't got yet to the second DFC letter.
So, okay, so it's 4.1 as opposed to 4.2. That's okay then, it'll wait.
Okay, that's fine. Sorry, it's like doing a novice airline pilot's session here between the different screens, so I apologise for that. Councillor Anne-Marie Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. Just happy to second that that we accept that request regarding
thank
the
you.
community transport. Thank you.
Thank you for seconding. All agreed. Councillor Green, you still your hand up? Thank you. Okay, we're on now. That's page 7. Page 8.
Yes, Chair, page 8. So this is, sorry, just the second letter from the Department for the Communities, and this is in relation to the request that there would be a cross-council delegation regarding the importance of the rate support grant funding, and also urging the reinstatement of that grant in full to the councils. So the response from the department is indicating that the Minister is not in a position to accept the invitation for meeting at this time.
Okay, Councillor Keenan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. Well, as I said, very disappointed that Deirdre Hargey has decided to cut the rate support grant by 4 million, which, as the letter says, in effect is a reduction of 25% compared to the last year. Especially since her department has been allocated 53 million more for 2021 to 22 than it had been allocated the previous year, which was an increase, which is an increase of 6.4%. So although her department has more money to spend, she's still cutting the rate support grants to local councils, which is going to put more financial pressure on the very communities herself and her department is supposed to be representative of. These facts and figures alone speak volumes to me, but that tied in with the fact that she couldn't be bothered to reply herself to the joint letter from the chief executives and also refused the request to meet to discuss this very important issue further just reinforces my belief, and I feel a widely held belief of many people in the north of Ireland, that Stormont does not want to deliver for the many, but is interested only in the selected few.
Okay, Councillor O'Coffey.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to echo the previous comments there. It is a very disappointing outcome. Obviously, this will put additional pressure on our rates now, and potentially at a very difficult time for traders, but also for households who have to try and find this additional money. I'm just wondering, is there any estimation of the consequences for this for our council in particular? What does this reduction in the RSG correspond to in terms of the additional burden on local ratepayers? Thank you, Chair.
Chair, yes, I can respond to that. The amount that the reduction for ourselves means a sum of £237,000 less than what we had anticipated for this year. That means we have a shortfall in this year. That's a reduction of, well, in terms of the rates impact, it's about 0.6%. So it's less than a penny, but it still is, you know, across the board, it's a significant sum. Chair, I can also report that the finance officers are continuing to press on this issue. And I suppose the point that we are highlighting at the moment is to try and to encourage the department to re-establish the baseline for this particular fund at the previous rate of 15 million, as opposed to the baseline then going forward as 11 million. That would be most concerning. So whilst, as the letter points out, there was exceptional funding in the year 2021 that we can use to assist with us. Going forward, we certainly want to try and get the fund that is available, the pot that is available, increased back up to the previous sums of 15 million, which would mean that we hopefully wouldn't be in that position. But again, there's no guarantees on any of that.
Okay, Councillor Coffey, you proposing to no? Okay, thank you. Next one is Councillor Irvine.
Sure, much, Chair. I think it's too early for some of our members to talk about an increase in the rates going into next year. I appreciate that the rate support grant getting cut down this year is a setback, but I take on board what our officers are saying, our directors, with regard to further engagement with the Minister. All I can say is that over the last number of years, prudence has been quite the backward within our council, and we've been able to manage when we've had severe setbacks. I see this as a setback, but I don't necessarily see it as a knock-on automatically onto an increase in the rates. That'll have to be looked at when we come to the estimates at the start of next year. It's disappointing, I'll say that. I think we have to engage the Minister to see what we can do. But talk about increase in rates at this stage is, I would say, extremely premature. Thank you.
Mr. Irvine, are you prepared to second? Thank you. Next one is Councillor Wilson.
Yes, Chair. Well, any raise in our rates is to it doesn't bode good for our management, but we do see that there has been quite a bit of other funding put into the council coffers over the year. But I can't understand how we as a council voted through to spend something probably over £1 million of ratepayers' money. And I'm not seeing anything with this Irish or Ulster Scots signage. And in my opinion, a waste of councillor and ratepayers' money. So
Okay, we're not doing
I cannot see
Councillor
how
Hickson,
people.
we're not going into debate on.
Yes, but I can't see how councillors now will moan about funding.
Okay, please stop, Councillor Wilson. We're dealing with the items on the agenda. Next one is Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I want to put on record, Chair, my disappointment at this response. I mean, I appreciate that the Minister has pressures on her budget, and she does make the point that whilst the rate support grant is statutory based, that it is discretionary and that it is not ring-fenced. However, I do think that there should have been some acknowledgement of the horrific time that local government has had over the past 18 months, trying to deliver services and to support our citizens at a time of unprecedented stress and pressure. And I personally am very proud of how Fermanagh and Omagh District Council has performed, and also our various community groups. And without that cooperation, we simply would not have managed. But it has been a huge stress. And whilst Councillor Irvine says it's far too early to look at the impact on rates, I would suggest that if we are set to lose 237,000, then it will have an impact on our ratepayers, and that's regrettable. And I do think it's unfortunate that the Minister cannot recognise and acknowledge the good work that has been done by local government. And I do think that there is a failure to appreciate fully the role that local government plays in service delivery in Northern Ireland. So hugely disappointing. I think that we should continue to lobby the Minister. Perhaps as the year progresses, the financial position may become a little better, although that's doubtful. But nevertheless, I think that we as a council must fight on behalf of our ratepayers and to continue to lobby the Minister for that rate support grant. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Deehan. The last speaker on this will be Councillor Michael Lear.
Thank you, Chair. And on the right one here now. Yeah, extremely disappointing response, disheartening response. I'll not go over what the previous councillors have said. This was a coming together of 7 of the councils represented by the chief executives. The letter itself, you know, the language used in the letter that we had sent to the Minister, we're writing a request as an urgent delegation with yourself to demonstrate the impact of these cuts and ensure the grant is urgently restored to its original required levels. Our councils have asked that this delegation be progressed urgently, as we have already embarked on our 2022-23 rates process, which will be incredibly challenging given the continued impact of the pandemic on our key income sources, and we therefore appreciate as an earlier response as possible. You know, I have to give credit here. Compared to some of the departments, we only waited the guts of a month for the response to come. But the story, as has been pointed out, is that the DFC budget has increased by 53 million, and they're shortchanging Fermanagh and Omagh District Council area by 230,000. That's simply not good enough. Prior to, I suppose, the previous speaker, I wasn't aware of people talking about a rates increase. I know we increased the rates this year. I'm sure myself, I wouldn't be alone in thinking that we would be looking for a rebate next year to actually repay what our local citizens and residents have put into the area through increasingly difficult times. But I think it's shambolic from the Minister that this is the response, as Councillor Koenig was said earlier, that she doesn't have the time to respond to this directly herself speaks volumes. And I think we need, and there's probably not much point to it, but I think we need to go back to it again and just impinge on just how important and how significant a matter this is, affecting this and the other rural council areas mentioned. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I think all the points are noted. We've had it proposed and seconded for noting. Anybody in disagreement with that? Okay, noted. We're moving on now to page 8, page 9, page 10.
Chair?
Councillor
Oh,
Armstrong?
Yeah, Chair. Is it page, am I wrong here? Page 9, educational? Beg your pardon, wrong page. Beg your pardon.
Okay, so we're now page 10, page 11, page 12, Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. At the bottom of page 12 there with the rainbow crossings, I've been contacted by several people in my area, especially disabled people. The one that I want to ask the Chief Executive, what effect would it have on partly blind people and coloured people, these patrons of the pedestrian crossing? They tell me they're telling me it's unsafe for them because with a sunny day or something, it reflects or something on them. It cause problems, and it's a health and safety issue, they say. So I want an answer from can the Chief Executive give me an answer on that?
Okay, we'll bring in the Chief Executive.
Chair, I am aware that in England a number of the access associations have raised formal concerns with the equivalent of the Department for Infrastructure regarding the impact of rainbow crossings on people with a variety of disabilities, including those with visual disabilities and some with hallucinatory disabilities. The issues around access more generally and inclusion would be part of the Council's further consideration on the matter. The agreed position where we are now, Chair, is that we'll be arranging a workshop for the OMA and Enniskillen DEA members to discuss potential locations, feasibility, and obviously any concerns regarding access or health and safety would then be brought to the Council on completion of that workshop.
Okay, thank you, Chief Executive. Councillor Irvine?
Thanks, Chair. On the back of what Councillor Robinson has said, I've been lobbied as well in that regard as well. I suppose it's a quality impact. I would ask the Chief Executive is, or the two DAs when we do the workshop, is the proposal or are the proposals going to be quality impacted just to see whether they have any adverse effect on any Section 75 groupings? Because that would appear to be the thrust coming from the lobby groups on the mainland, the variety of disabilities. So got to be cognizantly aware of that and take that into account if we're not doing so already.
Chair, so the Council's decision at the moment is to proceed with arranging the workshops. That's what we would be doing, and then following on from the workshops we would be reporting back to the Council. And routinely, Chair, we would have to look at feasibility. We would obviously do an equality impact. We'd look at rural proofing. We'd look at all of those matters, as well as the health and safety or general considerations. Members will also be aware of DFI's role in this regard as well, so we're continuing to liaise with them. But yes, a composite report on all of those matters would be brought forward before the Council would take any decisions.
Okay, thank you, Chief Executive. I think we're still on page 13. Councillor McAleer, sorry.
Yes, Chair. I have to come on this point. I think as a member of the Disability Advisory Group, it's not an issue that I've been made aware of. I would be concerned that maybe councillors are using this as an excuse to not proceed with this. But I think if we're, the talk the last day or the quote the last day was a quote of £20,000 to install this per site. And I believe the average price for a traffic crossing normally is around 15,000. So I would imagine that the work that's gone into this, both researching it and obviously then installing it, that all of those issues will be dealt with and adequately dealt with This issue is very much about equality, and I don't think it's a stage to be playing one minority against another. And I think just I have to put that on record there, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, well, the process is ongoing and we've got assurances there from the Councillor Robinson, you've already been in this. Have some comment there?
Chair, one late and on, you're going to page, what, 13 there next? There's an issue on page 13, Ulster Tower.
Okay, page 13, yes, go on ahead.
Councillor Thompson can't go now to the Ulster Tower along with Councillor Rainey. So I'm asking, would it be possible to put Councillor Buchanan in his place of Councillor Thompson?
I'll ask the Chief Executive here.
Well, Chair, it really would be a matter for the council. What was agreed at the last meeting were that the two council representatives on the SOM Advisory Council be invited, and coincidentally, Councillor Thompson, who is currently the council chair, is one of those reps. So if Councillor Buchanan were to attend, it wouldn't be in his capacity as a representative on the SOM Advisory Council, but rather as a replacement for Councillor Thompson. So that would be up to a matter for members to determine.
Members, I've had a proposal to have a seconder that this replacement takes place.
I'll second, Chair. Councillor Deehan.
I've had a seconder in the chamber here, Councillor Elliott. Are all members in agreement?
Chair.
Sorry, Councillor Keenan, you're looking to come in?
I've just a question. This is a trip to the Somme, France, yeah?
That's correct.
I'm just wondering, what is the cost, or is the council paying for this, or is this an annual thing, or do they always pay for it? Or?
It was detailed, Chair, in the report last month, and is from memory in the minutes, it's £549 per person, plus mileage, car parking and subsistence. And yes, the council would pay for its nominees to participate on the visit.
Right, I'll dissent from that one, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. Just a query around the process and protocol. Did the council not make a decision on this previously, and it was deemed that the two representatives of the group would go? Is it my understanding that them decisions can't be changed for 6 months, or maybe I'm wrong on that? It just that decision was made around the two representatives of an organisation that the Christam was to go, and now this seems to go outside that. But just a clarity from that from the Chief Executive.
Okay, we got clarity here, Chief Executive.
Yes, the council's decision, Chair, was the two representatives on the SOM Advisory Council. The advice we've received this evening from Councillor Robinson is one of those reps isn't available. The normal route for rescinding such a decision would be by way of a rescinding motion. In the context of I suppose, the decision that's been taken, you would move then to a situation where only one representative would be able to attend as the other rep was no longer available. So hence it's a matter for members to consider. But yes, the route for changing or overturning council decisions would be by call-in in the first instance or by a rescinding motion. I think the issue here, Chair, is that it's not going to change the participation or availability of Councillor Thompson at the visit.
Well, members, we're left with it's up to yourselves. I've had a proposal and a seconder.
Sorry, but then if that's the case, Chief Executive saying that it needs a rescinding motion, how does that process, or a call in, how does that process take place? Is it just a matter of us to make a decision now, or has it to be done through official channels? I'm just a bit confused on that.
Chief Executive.
Okay, well, the time for call-in has elapsed, so a call-in is not feasible. In the context of a rescinding motion, a motion could be put forward by a proposer and seconder for consideration of the next council meeting. I think the issue in terms of the decision that has been taken is that the availability of the two members is no longer, or sorry, the availability of both members is no longer an option. So therefore, to rescind that particular decision, you would have to revisit your wider composition of attendance at the event. So the mechanism for doing that, Councillor Green, would be a motion submitted in advance of the November council meeting within the requisite timescale, which would be normally the Tuesday before the meeting by 5 p.m.
Okay, we have Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair. Well, Chair, I think this is nitpicking. I think the reason we specified representatives of the SOM committee was that, you know, that would solve the issue of who would go and who wouldn't go. It's unfortunate that Councillor Thompson isn't able to go, but I think given that he is chair of council and so many demands on his time, I can understand how he might not be available for that trip. The council has approved 2 attendances to represent this council. The cost, therefore, was agreed that 2 members would go. There wasn't a discussion regarding a reserve candidate. I accept that, but I think it's nitpicking. I certainly would feel it is appropriate that if Councillor Thompson isn't available, that Councillor Buchanan should substitute for him. I think it would be a good thing if there were 2 representatives from this council, particularly if it was even just for companionship and company. And I think that it is nitpicking, and I would support the decision that Councillor Buchanan be allowed to substitute for Councillor Thompson. I think it's in the spirit of what we had agreed.
Thank you. Councillor Garrity.
Thanks very much, Chair, and I'll be very brief. Just in line with what Councillor Deehan was saying there, from memory, there wasn't an appetite to send any more than 2 members from the last night, but 2 were agreed. Councillor Thompson, in my view, is doing an excellent job in the chair role to date this year, and whatever circumstances, he may not be able to commit to this trip, and I would be happy to support in the grouping that he's replaced on this occasion, and that there hopefully there'll be agreement by Councillor Buchanan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McGuire.
Gurmagad, Chair, and as the proposer of the motion at the previous meeting, the idea was that our 2 reps from the SOM group would attend as the proper people to represent the council at this particular function, and I think it was in good spirit that I did propose that. I don't consider Councillor Green's interjection a nitpicking, because procedurally he is 100% right. It was the 2 reps from the SOM group that we proposed should attend. We are now discussing a different issue in that Councillor Thompson isn't available. We are then changing entirely the situation as we agreed at the previous meeting. But given the time scales and the lack of time available for all procedures, I'm quite happy for Councillor Buchanan to be proposed as the alternative. But again, just on the point of nitpicking, I think procedurally, I think we were corrected to have that discussion. Gurmagad, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McGuire. Councillor Coffey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think it's given the investment in sections of our community around the events around the SOM and continued historic resonance today. I think it's absolutely should be that we would accommodate members to go over there to commemorate this. I think it's vital that we show that goodwill to all sides. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Coffey.
Chair, a point of order there, or a point of clarification. I have been accused of nitpicking. are we? Can I ask the chief executive, and that's what I was asking to start off with, is there a procedure within the council that we can change this? Because if it takes a rescinding motion and there's a format to do it, are we setting a precedent now that anything we don't like or anything that we have decided that all processes can be threw out the window and changed without going through due process? If we take the notion, because if that's the case, I certainly, there's been a number of things that went through the council that I was blocked from raising because I hadn't went through due process. So I have no problem with Councillor Buchanan going and taking the thing, but is there due process to be followed or not?
Okay,
And
Councillor
if it's not on this
question.
occasion, will it not be on every other occasion?
Okay, Councillor Green, we'll ask the chief executive again to clarify the issue.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Chair, I think there's 2 points here. In terms of decisions of the council, the mechanisms for those to be revisited are the call-in procedure, which is time-bound and which is obviously lapsed, or a rescinding motion. I think the issue in terms of the decision before members this evening is that the council agreed that 2 representatives would attend the visit. That was linked to the representation of those members who are on the SOM Advisory Council. Based on the information that Councillor Robinson has advised us, one of those representatives, namely Councillor Thompson, will not be able to attend at any point. So the decision before members is whether, one, the member who is available, namely Councillor Rainey, attends independently, or in light of Councillor Thompson's absence, members wish to reflect the spirit of the decision and include a second representative. I think in terms of the wider point that Councillor Green is making around the rescinding of policy, I don't think that this would be a fair comparator, Chair. In terms of the time, it's detailed within the previous report and the minutes this evening. This visit is due to take place from the 18th of November to the 21st. There would be a requirement for bookings to be made. I think there's a reasonable prospect if a decision was to be reviewed at the November Council meeting that there's a possibility that spaces would no longer be available. I'm not sure, Chair, I know the legal services officer is on the call, whether Philip would also wish to comment, but I don't think we're comparing policy decisions on a like-for-like basis.
Yeah, so.
Okay, Chief Executive, moving on. Okay, Philip, do you wish to comment?
I just wanted to say that I agree with what Alison, the Chief Executive is saying. The purpose of rescinding motion is when one is actually setting aside a policy decision that the Council has made, and indeed a standing order is, a call-in is a reconsideration of that position. This is a situation, it appears, whereby the original motion now isn't going to be possible in its exact form, and consequently one is looking at almost an addition to it to allow something else to take place as well. Councillor Green's correct in what he would say. If this was a policy decision, absolutely there would need to be the proper procedures followed, and there would need to be a rescinding motion brought forward to set it aside. He would be quite correct that one shouldn't be opening floodgates, but this isn't exactly an analogous situation to that.
Okay, thank you, Philip. I'm not going to take any more speakers on this. We've had it proposed and seconded. Councillor Buchanan replaces Councillor Thompson. Are there any who are not in support of that change? If you raise your hands, please. Councillor Keenan, you have already dissented. Councillor McAleer, your hand is up. And Councillor Green. So that is passed. Now we're moving on to a opinion with page 13. Councillor Emmett McAleer, your hand is up.
Yeah, Chair, it was in relation to the last point, but I know you've moved on at this stage now, so.
Okay, thank you. Could you take your hand down then, please? Yeah. Page 14. Page 15. Page 16.
Mr. Chair, just 2 items of correspondence.
Chief Executive, I have Councillor Baird. Councillor Baird, is it page 15 or 16?
Page 16 is in relation to the 2 letters, one from Department of Education.
Okay, I'll bring you in first. I just want to let the Chief Executive in to explain those. Sorry.
Sorry, Chair, thank you. Just really to advise members, we've received 2 responses. Firstly from the Minister of Education in relation to the difficulties experienced, and the reference is made to a cluster of COVID cases and insufficient driver capacity. And then separately, Chair, from the Education Authority, which details, I suppose, the general difficulties that the authority has had in the context of transportation for students, and also notes the contingency measures that they have in place.
Okay, I bring you in now, Councillor Baird.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, having read the 2 letters, obviously we have to have some sympathy with both bodies in the context of COVID and the unavailability of drivers. But it would seem the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, because the Department of Education reckons there's 86,000 pupils using buses, where the Education Authority says it's 90,000 plus. So if the 2 bodies which have responsibility for school transport can't agree the actual pupillage that they have, it would be, I presume it's reasonable to say there would be a difficulty in them coming up with a solution. Thank you very much, Chair.
Are you proposing to note?
Yes, I'm happy enough to propose to note, but that's, as I say, it's disappointing. That's euphemism again. That there's not that the 2 bodies don't realise how many pupils they have. But I'm happy to note. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I suspect Councillor Green maybe will shed even more light on the reality of the situation locally, but I think that there's a degree of dishonesty. I actually believe in both letters. Effectively, there's an attempt to portray this as part of an industry-wide problem, COVID-related and so on. This is a problem which has been known about for a long time, and there has been a complete and absolute failure on behalf of Education Authority, as there has been in regard to recruitment, as there has been in regard by the likes of even Ulsterbus. They haven't recruited sufficiently, and indeed many haulage companies. And the whole point really is that across the private sector at the moment, we're seeing extreme dislocation caused by just-in-time on one hand, but also really tight staffing ratios, which is all to increase them and maximize profit. And the idea of training up additional drivers is something that they don't want to waste money on. And it's unfortunately crept into the public sector to the point now that with any crisis such as COVID or whatever, we are faced with a scenario where we don't have enough drivers to take children to school, which is an outlandish situation. I also note on the second document coming from the Education Authority, the accurate, very worrying additional comments that they are hiring additional private operators. And we can see how this crisis is now being used by the Education Authority to advance the privatization and outsourcing of school transport. And that's something I think we should stand strongly against. So I would propose that we as a council respond to the Education Authority. I'm happy to second this document in passing, but we should write back to the Education Authority and indeed to the Minister and highlight our opposition to any crisis being used as an opportunity to advance privatisation or outsourcing of school transport services. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so your second notion. Okay, the next one in line is Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I do believe this is a massive failure by the Education Authority. on this issue, and I do agree with the previous speakers. Thankfully, after speaking to residents in Tempo, the normal service has been resumed. But my question is, why has there been no emergency planning in the months preceding the restart of the school term? COVID has been here for 19 months, so why has that not been addressed? Contingency plans in place. Why also have there been no rotations, that it's not just one geographical area that has been targeted for the disruption? And my question originally last month was it hasn't been addressed why there's no system in place to notify parents in good time that these disruptions happen, because parents are getting ready for their working day. This is impacting drivers, it's impacting parents, it's impacting school children. And really, parents need assurances regarding the safe and reliable transport of their children to their places of education. So I would like to add to Councillor Coffey's proposal and ask that we seek a fundamental review of school, of transport to school and safeguards for children that are taken to and from school by school transport. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Armstrong. I'm going to ask Councillor Coffey if he will take that into his proposal.
Happy to do so, Chair.
Okay, we have next speaker is Siobhan Curry. Councillor Curry.
Margaret Caherly, thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Yeah. Just to support the comments made by Councillor Armstrong there, those are very much the concerns that I was receiving from parents in the Tempo area as well, and the points that they were raising. The reality was for them that they weren't being notified at all. They were finding out after children were already standing out on the side of the road that the bus wasn't coming that day. So I acknowledge that they've said that they've got they've launched a new web page where details of disrupted routes will be published each evening. I hope it is in the evening before, but even that is very short timescales. And I understand, that sometimes these things can be caused by driver illness or whatever, and that's what they're stating here. But really, it's just around parents and families being able to plan just to get their children to school safely. And also a very valid point, and one that was being raised by the parents as well, was around the rotation. Surely they could have rotated the affected route so that it wasn't just this route that was continuously impacted. So those are very good points. I just want to support that. That's what I was coming in to say, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Curry. Next speaker is Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, supportive of the comments so far. I think there's a number of issues raised, and I'm glad that an earlier speaker mentioned the discrepancy in the number of students that the two bodies have responded with. I think as well it's a case of maybe less haste, more speed, because through the talk of redeployment and emergency training and people being rushed through access NIs and driver training and that there have been previous instances where, and I give the example of our local area where a child with an educational or a learning disability was actually left on a bus unsupervised for the duration of the day. And we don't want to see people being rushed into these positions that aren't fully trained and aren't aware of the responsibilities that go alongside the role that they're taking on, the very important role of transporting our young people to and from school. So I think it's vitally important that all aspects of training are covered, even if it is for emergency staff or staff that are stepping in or that. And I think as well, just to note that the letter from the AA says that there's confirmation there that the runs in Tempo area were fully operational from Monday the 20th of September. That's still 3 weeks into the teaching term, the academic term. And that's, as previous speakers and speakers from the area have said, that's 3 weeks where families have been directly impacted, whether it be sorting runs for children or for arranging supervision for them, arranging lifts in a time of COVID. And really the lack of awareness, the lack of notification for families just isn't good enough. So I think it's very encouraging that as a council we're going back and we're responding on this, because I think there are nearly as many questions being raised by the response as there are by the original instance. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McAleer. And the last speaker on this is Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. Just the letter, it kind of gives the impression that this is a lot of it has to do with COVID and the pressures of COVID. As I have been saying for a long time, this predates COVID. The school bus drivers are, a lot of them, in their late 60s and 70s, mid 70s. And a blind man could have seen that there was going to be a problem with recruitment, that when these men and women started to retire or take off due to sickness or whatever, that there was a shortage. Over the last couple of years, I know myself, because employers are supposed to accommodate if you have council engagement, if they can. 10 years ago or 5 years ago, the bus service would always have been able to accommodate if you were looking for a day off. Over the last 5 years, a non-paid day off, by the way, over the last 5 years, it has been getting almost impossible because there was no relief drivers there. So thus, when anyone took off, there was nobody to replace them. What has been happening now is that there's been a panic stations, and a lot of the private companies are providing drivers to take up the slack, and I don't know what's the best way to put this, but the Education Authority are now trying to nick the drivers off the private companies to take over the runs that they have no drivers for. So it's actually comical to see them trying to justify that there was any kind of forward planning on this, because there wasn't, and it is still a disaster waiting to happen because it hasn't been solved. 10, 15, 20 years ago, they were training drivers to bring on. To stop doing that, whether it was due to money or whatever, but that's where the problem lies.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Green. You've heard it proposed and seconded. Does everybody agree? Councillor Green, could you take down your hand, please? Okay, so all agreed. Okay, I think that's, there's nothing else really on page 16 or 17. Okay, we now move on to reports for decision. And the first one of those is item 5.1. Consider a report from the Disability Advisory Group meeting held on the 28th of June 2021 and the 29th of September 2021. Bring in Alison. Sorry, Margaret. Margaret.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the purpose of this report is just to inform members of the issues raised in both of the meetings, but also to seek approval for one action which arises from the meeting on the 29th of September. The minutes of both meetings are attached as Appendix 1 to this report. The first meeting is Appendix 1, the second Appendix 2. And then at the second meeting, those present agreed that Council approval at the next Policy and Resources Committee meeting be sought to write a letter to the Western Trust in relation to opening up the testing facility at the Hope Centre in Enniskillen to people with disabilities. This was in response to the report of the difficulties people with disabilities face when they're required to do a PCR test at St Angelo Airport, Enniskillen. That's in terms of getting there and obviously the facilities when they actually do get there. So it's recommended that the Chair of the Disability Advisory Group sends a letter to the Western Trust requesting that access to the testing facility at the Hope Centre in Enniskillen be made available to people with disabilities.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. I'm going to bring in Councillor Warrington as chair of that group.
Thank you, Chair. Well, obviously, as Margaret has stated, we are going to send a letter. I'm not sure in my position of chair if I can propose this tonight, but if I can, I certainly propose it. Thank you.
Okay, so you're proposing to adopt, and you're also making the recommendation as outlined. Thank you. We'll now call on Councillor Tommy McGuire.
Carly, I was going to propose if the chair was unable, but happy enough to second. Noting. Thanks.
Okay, members, nobody else looking in, so it's proposed and seconded that we adopt the there and more or less comply with the recommendation. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is 5.2. Consider minutes of the special meeting of the Rural Affairs Subcommittee held on the 2nd of September 2021. That's paper B. And Councillor Green, calling you as the chair of that subcommittee.
Yeah, I propose that the minutes.
Okay, so you proposed and noted and adopted. Do we have a seconder from that group?
And second, Councillor Robinson.
Councillor Robinson. Okay, members, you've heard it proposed and seconded that we adopt the minutes of that meeting. All in agreement? It passed. We move on now to item 5.3, and that is to consider minutes of the Rural Affairs Subcommittee meeting held on 9th September 2021. That's paper C. And again, I call on Councillor Green.
Yeah, I propose them minutes as well, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, I see Councillor Baird. Hand is up.
Yes, Chair, it's been pointed out to me that in item 3, I declared an interest on agenda 6, but when it came to agenda 6, I made a proposal which was seconded by Councillor Feely. If my memory serves me correctly, I think the interest I declared to was my position in ICBAN, which wasn't directly related to this. So I just want to keep myself covered that I haven't done anything wrong. I don't believe I have, but I just wanted to provide clarity on that. Thank you, Chair.
Take a note of that, but thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
So do we have a seconder then for Councillor Green's proposal?
I'll second, Chair.
Councillor Baird. Okay. Any dissenters from that? Councillor Baird, could you take down your hand, please?
Will do.
Still up? That's fine. Okay. So no dissenters to that. That's passed. We're moving on now to corporate services. Item 6, corporate services and governance directorate reports. First one of these is 6.1, to consider minutes of the audit panel meeting held on the 15th September 2020. And again, it's Councillor Green. You're the chair of the audit panel. You want to note and adopt?
Yes, I want to propose them to minutes for adoption. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Robinson?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, members. Celine, you wish to speak?
Yeah, Chair, may I just draw your attention to 2 updated policies that are also there for approval in this paper, and that is the Raising Concerns policy set out at Appendix 2 and the Fraud and Whistleblowing policy set out at Appendix 3, both marked up with the changes and updated really in line with good practice and just to reflect current operational arrangements as well.
Okay, thank you, Celine. Members seem to be content. Hold on, Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, Chair, thank you. I did see that the change was made to that policy in regard to whistleblowing. I think it's a positive development insofar as we now extending a similar provision to members of the public who may want to raise issues. And I do note in light of that that we had sought legal and human resource advice around a member of the public who had been querying, information through freedom of information about councillors' expenses. I'm just wondering, I understand I'm sure that is that settled at this stage, or is that, where does that stand? Thank you.
I'm happy to pick up on that in confidential matters.
Okay, Councillor Coffey, you've heard the Chief Executive will do that. Okay, nobody coming in on those two new policies, so they've been adopted. Thank you. Next one on the agenda is 6.2. Consider update report on procurement and tenders. That is paper E before you.
Chair, members, the monthly procurement report, which is 2 matters for decision making in respect of tenders awarded because there was less than the required submissions. Also information there on tenders to be issued and extended. And then the matters for information is in respect of tenders that have been awarded in accordance with the delegated authority. And if I can just pick up on a point there in respect of 3.1.2, which I believe was discussed at last night's committee meeting, and to confirm that the pre-tender estimate in this instance was overstated, I suppose, because of potentially the complexity of the work. We did go to a public tender. We have, as you can see, 4 responses, and we have worked through that process and are proposing to award on the basis of a reduced tender sum. And I understand that there's some grant that we anticipate will be able to be acquired to support that project as well. The recommendations are set out then in page 5 and 6 there at item 9 in respect of the approvals and the noting.
Okay, thank you, Celine. Councillor Mary Garrity.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks Celine and all the officers for their work. Looking at the report, content to support the recommendations as outlined in item 9, as alluded to by Celine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garrity. Councillor Warrington.
Happy to support, Chair.
So you seconding?
Second that, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor O'Coffey.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's around the estimated cost of stabilising the current castle. I won't go back into how we've effectively subsidised the private sector tenant, but I'm just wondering, the initial pre-tender estimate amounts to 270,000. Now, obviously, it comes down to 165,000, but obviously that goes back up to nearly $250,000 with additional costs. But I'm wondering, is there any explanation of how our initial pre-tender estimate was so much higher than the one that came through in the end? Is there any concerns that this may not be sufficient or a guarantee that this work will be done in a way that will protect this valuable building as part of a domain, should be anyway, into the future? And finally, is there any understanding, or is there any information that can be provided as to what the building will look like after this work is done? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Celine, you wish to comment on that?
Chair, this heritage restoration and conservation work is particularly specialised, and it is difficult to estimate what the cost will be. And that was based on a professional estimate. And we have gone through a public tender exercise. Many times it can go in the other direction for us. In this instance, it has come in at a lower cost, and that's acceptable. The contractor is on our framework, has completed works for us in respect of many projects, and we have no concerns about the standard of their work. The project will be managed through normal contract management arrangements, and again, those are well established within the council. in relation to what the building will look like, I think it's important to note that it is a ruin, so it will not look, it is not being restored as such. It's stabilisation works to really to make it safe and to ensure that what is there is preserved for at least a period of time. But I will check with colleagues in the heritage side and see if they have anything that can be offered. But I would emphasise it's a stabilisation project and not a refurbishment project by any means.
Okay, thank you for that. We've heard it proposed and seconded. Recommendations here. Anybody in disagreement? Sorry, Councillor Curry.
Yes, for Margaret Caherly, it's just for just some clarification around the funding there just against Nicarn. So the tender has came in at around about the 165,000 mark. It's gone off my screen again. And last night we talked about the £40,000 for the landfill community fund. So that £40,000 would effectively go towards paying that bill of 165. As it stands, the council's outlay on it, unless we get funding from elsewhere, is around the 120,000 to 125,000 pound mark. It's just for clarity, Chair.
Okay, I've got before I ask Celine, Councillor Maguire wishes to come in. Councillor Maguire.
Sure, Margaret. Carly, well, just I wasn't going to come in, but then just on reflection, I believe there was two inaccurate comments made in the midst of the discussion in relation to the Cairn. One of them, which has been muted several times in the chamber, the accusation nearly that we as a council subsidised a private negotiation in relation to Nicarn, which had absolutely nothing to do with the walls of the castle. It again was stated there that we with some innuendo that there was some nasty dealing. Just for accuracy, through the chair to the chief executive, am I correct that building was never part of that negotiation? I believe that's correct. And secondly, again, when Nicarn's mentioned, there seems to be a little bit of a fantasy comes into play in this chamber, and indeed it was issued before some members became councillors. There was a fantasy session in here that we had to listen to for an hour and a half. But just to clarify, and I'm glad, Celine, you did clarify in your remarks, we are talking about spending substantial amount of council money on a ruin, and not, as was indicated in the comments of one member, that a valuable building. It is a ruin. It's costing us a lot of ratepayers' money to sustain a ruinous wall. So that just for clarification on those 2 points, please. Margaret, Chair.
Okay. Alison.
Just specifically, Chair, around the proposals for the wider Nicarn estate, Councillor Maguire is correct. The aspect of the castle was not a consideration within those, and indeed I think the council at all times has communicated very clearly what the scope of the Nicarn project has been and is, so I would be surprised that there's any element of confusion around it at this stage.
Okay, thanks, Alison. Now I bring Celine in just to clarify that point.
And Chair, in relation to the second point, the reason why we are spending money is because of our obligations because this is a historical building. It is to meet our obligations from the HED department that in relation to maintaining this building, ruin as it stands, and this is long overdue, and again has been presented to council on a number of occasions before, and I think it's accepted that that we have to do our piece to keep this up as well. Keep the building maintained to a standard, which is a standard of a ruin, unfortunately, but still an important aspect.
Okay, Celine, thank you. I'm not allowing you in again. Throw coffee, which is we're going to do. I have a proposer and seconder that accept the recommendations.
Sure.
Anybody in disagreement with that, please raise your hand. Okay. that is
Chair,
passed.
Chair, it was just the point I had raised there. I just didn't receive the clarification on that. We got sidetracked a little bit.
Okay, we'll receive, but the vote is passed and the dissenter is Councillor Coffey here with.
Chair, just to clarify for Councillor Curry, my understanding is yes, that our net outlay position is 120,000, which is lower than we had anticipated and originally budgeted.
Okay,
Margaret,
we're
thank you
moving
for that.
on.
Celine. Thank you, Chair.
Now, the next item is 6.3 to consider report on staff matters. Celine?
Chair, members, just a couple of items there. One for decision making, which is just your approval for the Chair's reception for staff and annual staff recognition event. The update on COVID issues and how they're impacting on staff. Information on our Article 55 review, which has been submitted to the Equality Commission, and the recommendations at Section 8 is approval of those arrangements, and then to note the update on COVID issues and the submission of the Article 55 return for the 3-year period 2018 to 20.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Irvine?
I'm read now, I can speak. Thank you very much. Happy to approve the recommendations. Just with one query through to Celine on the Chair's reception. I presume, unless COVID-19 regulations change, that the same situation will apply for this as for Chair's reception with regard to attendance by councillors. I presume that's correct, isn't it?
Chair, I suppose it we will be mindful of the restrictions and the regulations that are relevant at the time, and will make arrangements appropriately. And if it is possible to invite councillors, we will, but we'll take a view closer to the time, I think is probably the best way to deal with that.
Okay, Councillor Mary Gardy?
Yes, Chair, I'm just happy to second, and hopefully, maybe as Celine alluded to there might be a chance for us all to meet up, but we will have to wait and see.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Green?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The whole thing is becoming quite confusing now. Is a Chair's reception different than, we'll say, an event in the Ardoin, where, as far as I know, if there's 300 people, can go in and sit there and watch an event. But if we then come out of the Ardoin and walk up to the town hall, we have to sit 2 meters apart. Does the Chair's reception then, which one of them regulations does it fall into? Does it fall into the one where the Ardoin can be filled, or where the town hall has 2 meters apart?
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Councillor Green. We'll just get clarity from the Chief Executive.
Chair, as things would stand at the moment, the Chair's reception in either of the civic buildings would classify as an indoor event. If it was being held, for example, in either the Struhl Arts Centre or the Ardoin, the prevailing restrictions or guidance in relation to performance settings would pertain. Obviously, on the 31st of October, our understanding is that social distancing for the hospitality sector will be removed. And I think we are likely to receive some further guidance from the executive as to how that will impact on other indoor settings. Certainly my informal understanding is that the definition of a close contact will remain at anyone within 2 meters of an individual. And in terms of our own theatres, Chair, we've obviously put in place quite significant mitigation measures, including proof of double vaccination status and other COVID-safe measures. So again, we will, as Celine has indicated, reflect on the guidance at the time. But if it was happening tomorrow night, it would relate to an indoor setting as opposed to either a theatre or performance venue.
Okay, thank you, Chief Executive. We've heard it proposed and seconded to approve the recommendation. Anybody in disagreement, please raise their hand. Okay, that's passed. Thank you. We now move on to item 7, Chief Executive Directorate Report, and that is 7.1, to note report on the launch of the Climate Change and Sustainable Development Action Plan 2021 to 2024. That's paper G. I bring in the Chief Executive. Sorry, Margaret, on this issue.
Thank you, Chair. It is a matter just for information. It's just to inform members of the arrangements for the launch of the Climate Change Sustainable Development Action Plan, which is going to take place, the official launch will take place on the 11th of November to coincide with the Local Government Day at the COP26 event in Glasgow, and will also reflect the fact that we'll be the first council in Northern Ireland to agree a climate change and sustainable development action plan, which is attached, the designed version now is attached as Appendix 1 to the report. We'll have significant social media messaging in relation to the launch, but in order to get the information to local press in the relevant week, we're actually taking the official photos. It's tomorrow, the 14th of October, between 2:30 and 3:30 p.m. And the official photo will be the chair and vice chair, accompanied by the chief executive. But there will also be a facility for any councillor who wishes to have their photo taken with the large-scale picture of the front page and the cutout of the hashtag. There will be some time between sort of about 2:45 and 3:30 at the rear of the forum, if any councillor wishes to attend. But if that's the case, it would be useful if they could indicate that they wish to attend, just so we can make sure that the relevant arrangements are in place. And we will be establishing a bank of photographs for future use in future social media messaging. So it's just it's just recommended that the council note the arrangements for the launch of the Climate Change and Sustainable Development Action Plan 2021 to 2024. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. First one is Councillor Bart Wilson.
Chair, well, as this is for noting, I can't really comment on it. I'm aware of, because there's a lot of things and I could comment on, but could I ask that my continued opposition to the approval of this document be noted, please?
Okay, thank you.
And could I ask as well as that, although it doesn't, I don't think, suit, is it, if I wish to appear in Enniskillen tomorrow, I don't think that I can do that just with the timetable I have. But if I do wish to, am I welcome there?
All councillors are welcome, as Margaret stated, but please...
Even with a different view?
Sorry, please notify in advance, as Margaret has asked. Councillor O'Coffey?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Obviously, I think it is something that we should be very proud of as a council, that we are now the first council in Northern Ireland to agree a climate change and sustainable development action plan. And I think it is it's the most pressing issue facing all of us at this time. I would note in particular, though, as per the minutes of this meeting, it was agreed that it was to be subject to changes in regard to the inclusion and strengthening of a provision around just transition. I note from reading and doing a bit of a search on it that there are actually 10 references to the word transition, but only 2 to just transition, one of which is in the appendix, as it was the last time. At least I guess we've got an additional reference at the very start. Obviously we're not going to change it at this stage, but I would just like to see the use of the terminology just transition in our publicity around this, because I think you've heard the last speaker. There are many in society, not just workers, but farmers, who are very concerned that this has to be a just transition, that the weight and the cost of transiting to a carbon neutral society must not be borne by those who are toilers, workers in whatever way, and as is likely to happen, and a business as usual. So with that, I'm happy to note this.
Okay, Councillor O'Coffey. Next one is Councillor Curry.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been through this last month, as Margaret has said there, but it's lovely to see the final document, and it is great now that it's going to be launched in line with the ahead of the COP26, and as Corio Coffee says there, that we are the first district to do this. I'm sure we won't be the last, and also to note that it is, as we discussed previously, ongoing. It can be revisited as well if changes are required in the future, substantial changes, I would say. But just to welcome it and to formally second then, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Curry. Members, if you do intend to come in for the photograph tomorrow, can you in advance, and I'm saying in advance, early tomorrow morning, notify Margaret, her office, of your attendance. Otherwise, we have it proposed and seconded. Note the report. Are all in agreement? If not, please indicate.
Chair.
Councillor Bert Wilson, I will take you as supporting. Okay.
I am not in agreement with it, Chair.
Councillor Wilson. Okay, thank you. You've noted. Councillor McGuire.
Good morning, Chair. Just in response to Councillor Bert Wilson, it's unfortunate that as a farmer, he finds himself in opposition nearly instinctively in a knee-jerk reaction to any progress on the climate change issue. But just I had going down to Oma yesterday evening, I had the radio on, and Radio Ulster have a show, an agricultural show, and on that they were discussing this very issue in a broader sense than our document. But there was a Dr. John Gilliland, I believe the gentleman's name is, who works for the Devonish Food Group on, and the amount of research that they're engaging in, and the position that he had, and the positive stuff that he said, definitely resonated with my already stated attitude that as a council going forward, we are going to have to rely on the farming community to progress these climate change issues, and any progress we're going to make, it will have to be farmers that carry it out, because they are the custodians of our environment for millennia, as I said before. So it's unfortunate that Bert finds himself in that sort of knee-jerk opposition position, but there is many professors and doctors out there who are talking about the positive actions that farmers can take to in fact add to the science and not feel that the science is intimidating them. It's just, I thought I'd add that to the comment.
Chair, could I just answer that comment in 3 words? In my time as a farmer, I have planted 30,000 plus trees. I have worked for the environment all along, so I think I have done my share. Thank you.
We know your views, and we know there's views of others against this, but that is the corporate decision of the council, and we thank you. Now, members, we are moving on to 8, that is Corporate Services and Government's Directorate Reports. 8.1 is to note the updated report on responsible procurement. Now, this was a matter which was at the last meeting. I had asked that if anybody wishes to make comment on this, that they report that in to Celine prior, and to bring it back tonight. First of all, I'll ask Celine, has anybody made any correspondence to you about this issue?
No, Chair, I've had nothing further. This is a representation of the report as previously presented.
Okay, thank you, Celine. So, Councillor Coffey, I more or less, I'm not taking any further comments on this. Are you wishing to propose noting? Councillor Coffey.
Well, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm happy to propose to note this document, but I do think it could be strengthened. For example, I think some of the stuff that's in this is quite useful. Well, obviously, this is an opportunity for us to do something very progressive in terms of our procurement policies.
Councillor Coffey, the last meeting you made derogatory comments, as I assessed, on staff with regard to this paper. I don't want that repeated tonight. You, in the position that you're in, should not be in any way grading the work of staff or whatever, and I will not again let you in on this topic. Okay, so I'm looking for a proposer and a seconder to note this report. Councillor Irvine?
Happy to propose, Chair. Thank you.
Brilliant.
I'm happy to second.
Okay. Have we any dissenters? Councillor Green, you're looking in?
No, I was going to propose a second, but I seen that the chamber got in ahead of me, so that's grand.
Okay, Councillor Green. Have we any dissenters to noting the? Thank you. Passed. We're now on to item 8, corporate services and government's directorate reports. The first of these is 8.2, to note report of Director of Corporate Services and Government's paper I. Celine.
Chair, members, just I suppose references to the Land and Property Northern Ireland Revaluation 2023, which is a relatively quick revaluation, but we hope that it does reflect some changes in, I suppose, it is for non-domestic properties, but changes certainly that there have been in the business climate. To note also the Local Government Boundary Commission's consultation responses and the link that's provided there, and the update of the NILGA Regional Network meeting of the 24th of September. The ask there is that members would feed back to NILGA in terms of the development of content for a lobbying skills programme for councillors, and finally the NILGA September bulletin for councillors, councils, and that's all for noting.
Okay, thank you, Celine. I do have a proposer to note. Councillor Deehan?
So proposed, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Josephine. Councillor Buchanan?
And seconded. Happy to second, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Buchanan. You've heard it proposed and seconded, we note. Any disagreement, please raise your hand now. Okay, thank you. We're now on to item 9.1. Consider correspondence dated the 30th of September 2021 from the Department for Infrastructure regarding rural community transport. Copy has been attached.
Chair, just to confirm, members considered that letter in the course of matters arising, so we'll proceed to arrange the meeting with the relevant officials and the Rural Affairs Subcommittee.
Okay, thank you, Alison. Do we need to note? No, we've already. Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is 9.2. Consider correspondence dated the 6th of October 2021 from the Department for Economy regarding the motion of the right to switch off. Copy was attached.
Yes, Chair, this is the Minister's response in relation to the Council's recently adopted motion. And in summary, the Minister is not minded to bring forward any specific legislation regarding the right to switch off and is content that there is sufficient provision in existing regulations for appropriate breaks and rest time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Curry?
Margaret Carley, I think the Minister's wrong, actually. I recognise, and I think it was recognised previously, both in the motion and in comments in the chamber, that there is some legislation there, but the point is, and it is also why my party, Sinn Féin, is bringing a private member's bill through on the same matter. Things have changed, things have massively changed for people, and the protections just aren't adequate. They aren't strong enough to protect workers, and they don't enable workers to take time off. And I think it's kind of hiding behind things a bit saying that we don't want to inadvertently disadvantage people whose circumstances and need to work flexibly require them to work outside normal hours. That's not the intention, so that's just a bit of, I don't know what you call that, muddying the waters. I think there's new words for it now. I just propose, I suppose, disappointed, but to note this correspondence and like I say, await our private members bill going through the Assembly on the same.
Thank you, Councillor Curry. I see you've proposed noting. Councillor O'Coffey.
Thanks for letting me in. Yeah, I think I echo the points being made there by Councillor Curry. In regard to the comments made, obviously, I think we raised it at the last end of discussion that this right exists in certain regards for those with fixed working hours. Obviously, it doesn't apply to those who would be more like white-collar jobs, which tend to have more flexible working hours. So I entirely agree that this response from the Minister is largely a sidestep of the intent behind the motion. Equally, I take particular issue with the notion that he states that he is confident that the current employment law framework provides sufficient protections, and in particular highlights the idea of an uninterrupted rest period of 11 hours. Well, there is many workers in this council area who are denied 11 hours rest by strange contractual arrangements, such as they don't count time you're on a boat if you're traveling over to make a delivery in England as work time, and that counts towards your 11 hours. So there's all sorts of strange interpretations that allow employers to get around the protections that do exist. And obviously, I fear that the Minister is actually on the side of the employers in this, of course. Thank you, Chair.
You're prepared to second the note. Thank you. No other speakers, so we prepared to propose as noted. Any dissenters from that? Okay, passed. The next item on the agenda is 9.3, to consider correspondence dated October 21 from the Northern Ireland Statistics and Research Agency, NISRA, regarding Census 2021 forms, and the copies were attached.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I suppose two aspects. The Council have previously made representations regarding the inclusion of town lands on census returns. So our response that we have received is really referring the Council to a consultation which has recently opened and which will run until the 26th of November. And that gives us the opportunity to formally state our wish for town lands to be included in future returns. Members will also have noted that the company or the NISRA are still working through to collate the data, and therefore they're unable to provide the information presently around the number of forms which have been returned with or without the town land recorded. But I imagine that will be issued to us when the information is available. So I suppose in summary, Chair, I imagine members would wish us to respond to the consultation, restating the points previously made in the various correspondences to NISRA on this subject.
Thank you, Chief Executive. The first speaker is Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair, and taking on board the comments from the Chief Executive there, I think it's very important that we as a council press for the need to, I suppose, continue providing the information at local town land level, given that it's such an important geographical unit for local community identification, for organisation and for planning in rural areas. And as a council, we should resist any efforts to completely remove town land names, given that they're such a rich and distinctive aspect of our culture. And indeed, the original townlands, and many of them are a descent from the Irish language, really describing the topography and characteristics of a local area, and that sense of place identification and belonging to that accompanies a townland. Furthermore, I think it would be important that we check that how the census information collate the county units, because I think more and more time, we've discussed this before, more and more frequently there's posts going to places in County Tyrone, which is marked as County Fermanagh, and I'm wondering, are they picking up the Fermanagh and Omagh District Council area tag? So I think there are just a couple of points that we should proceed with when we are responding to the consultation. But happy to propose the noting, and again, happy to propose that we do follow up on that when the time comes. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McAleer. Councillor Green? Sorry, Councillor Anthony Feely's next, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and sorry for getting to the meeting here. A lot of problems getting linked on with IT was very helpful there. I'll second the recommendation, and I'm glad too that the town lands is going to be. We'll try and keep the town lands going. I think it was either myself or Seamus brought this up at another meeting. Myself, maybe firmly, same as Councillor McLeod there off the town lands, and would have been very strong in fighting to keep them going along with Father Joe McPhee when they were trying to do away with them on the postal addresses there a number of years ago. So happy to second and fight on for the town lands. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Green?
Yeah, just on the same note there as Anthony, and I'll slightly correct him on when he says when they tried to do away with the town lands on postal addresses. Part of the problem was that they actually succeeded in doing away with the town land, as a lot of us at the time when this was being brought through, along with the 8,000 people that signed. But anyway, the problem is that the council ignored people's wishes back then to save the town lands. They said they'd put it on the third line of the address. Government bodies and all of these government bodies and promised that they'd do it. We see now that they don't. The census hasn't did it. That more and more letters you get from government bodies, the town land isn't on the third line of it. And there's a lot of us predicted that's what would happen. And now it's just the road names and local town. And the same problems that was there before is still there now. Letters going to the wrong counties, as Councillor McAleer said. There's a lot of people living in County Fermanagh that their address is County Tyrone. And post and things get lost on the way with the confusion. So a lot of us did predict it, and I think this is the outworkings of that. And the Census Department cannot wash their hands of it. They ignored the town lands. They didn't put them on the forms, and that's part of the problem. Even though all government bodies promised that they would keep the town land.
Okay, we've heard it proposed and seconded. Anybody dissenting from the noting of this? Okay, that's passed. We next move on to 9.4, and that's to consider details of the NILGA training session, Civil Contingencies Emergency Planning, taking place on the 26th of October 2021 at the Gavin Civic Centre, and it's a hybrid meeting. If anybody's in a position now, I'll ask group leaders first of all if they're in a position, or if not in position, to forward any name at this stage, if they could forward them Democratic Services by the 12th, stating whether in person or indeed whether it is hybrid by tech. Sorry, Monday the 18th. Sorry, I got my dates mixed up. That's next Monday. So sorry about that. Councillor Irvine?
Thank you very much, Chair. To date, I have two members I would nominate for this. First one, Councillor Armstrong will attend remotely, and secondly, Councillor Baird will attend in person. There may be one or two other councillors, and if so, I'll try and get those names in before, but I know two councillors at present. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Irvine. And if you'd notify by Monday this time. Anybody else in the position? Don't believe so, but perhaps group leaders or independent parties, if you are interested, please forward to Democratic Services by Monday next. Councillor Curry?
Margaret Carley, I'm already registered for it, but just to let Democratic Services know I'll attend remotely for Margaret.
Okay, thank you. Chief Executive, is there anything with regard to anybody that wants to go in person with regard? Does it need to be? Okay, so in other words, anybody that is so wishes to attend by their own car will need approval tonight. So can I get a proposal on that? Councillor Deehan?
Well, so proposed, Chair, but I believe I'm already registered, but I will be attending remotely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You happy to propose that, sorry?
Yes, happy to propose, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Irvine?
I'm happy to second the proposal that anybody wishes to attend in person will have it covered.
Okay. Councillor Warrington? All right. Councillor Warrington?
Can you hear me?
Can now, yeah.
Just to make you aware that Councillor Bell has could do with some IT if it's still there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll pass that on to IT now. Okay, thank you. Members, your hands up again, Councillor Warrington. Okay, thank you. You've heard it proposed and seconded that any member who wishes to attend in person and has their names into Democratic Services by Monday granted approval for my lunch. Anybody in disagreement? Okay, passed. Thank you. Is there any other correspondence, Chief Executive? No other. As I said at the Councillor Irvine?
About to propose to go into committee.
Okay, Councillor Irvine, just to repeat what I said at the beginning of the meeting, that I have two items of any urgent and relevant business, Councillor Baird and Councillor McElduff. I will not take them in order now. I will go into confidential and return back to those items of urgent and relevant business. So I've had a proposer, Councillor Irvine. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Earl Thompson. Seconding, Councillor Thompson? Yes, that we
Happy
go
to
into.
second, Chair, go into committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Could we make sure at this stage that we have our recording, please? Please clarify when. IT, are we ready yet? We're now recording. Okay, I'll ask now the Chief Executive to summarise.
Chair, thank you. While in committee, members considered the confidential minutes of the previous meeting held on the 15th of September, and there were no matters arising from those minutes. Members also considered a report on confidential staff matters, agreed with the recommendation and noted the general updates, and also considered confidential legal reports on 2 separate items, Chair, and resolved that in both cases further updates will be presented to the next Policy and Resources Committee meeting for further consideration.
Okay, thank you, Chief Executive. Could a proposer,
Proposed, Chair.
to note, and seconder to note?
Second, Chair.
Okay, that's Councillor Blake, was it?
Yep.
Okay, that's proposed and seconded, all agreed? Okay, members, we'll be returning now to item 10 on the agenda, any urgent and relevant business. Again, we're running tight for time here tonight. The first one I'll ask for Councillor Baird, and again, please keep your comments as short as possible, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Tempest is fugiting, and I will be as brief as possible. I want to raise an issue that I presume is common to us all as public representatives when trying to make representation on behalf of our constituents to various government departments and bodies. Inevitably and invariably, we make a phone call and we get a pre-recorded message to say that there will be a delay as a result of COVID and possibly as a result of people working remotely. Now, I just think this is unacceptable, but Kim brought it home to me this week on 2 occasions. I was kept waiting 45 minutes and had to give up. Now, we in Fermanagh and Omagh Council support hub working and home working, and we do it very successfully, the home working within the council. There's never an issue with trying to get through to the council, so it is possible. So there's no excuse for the lengthy periods of delay. So what I would like to propose is that we write to the head of the civil service, and I presume that is the appropriate person, to highlight the issue of the amount of time that's being wasted by us as public representatives, and indeed in our constituents when they are making the same calls. So for a call to ensure an effective and efficient service with minimal delay, that the matter has to be looked into. That is my proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Barrett. I was seconder for that proposal.
Happy to second,
Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Armstrong? Councillor Armstrong, do you second?
Yes, Chair, happy to second, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, you've heard it proposed and seconded that we write to the head of the civil service who is common. Anybody dissenting? Okay, asked.
Thanks, colleague. Appreciate it.
Okay, second item under any other business is Councillor McElduff.
Thank you, Chair. I availed of the mechanism whereby you write to yourself ahead of the meeting with an urgent item. My urgent item this evening is currently there is no asphalt resurfacing contract in the Omagh area. This was flagged up some months ago, and David McKinley addressed us on this subject at our meeting with DFI Roads during the summer. But it has now come to pass, and at this time, you know, when we draw attention to the attention of DFA, acting divisional manager, major schemes that need resurfacing, even minor schemes that need resurfacing, they're not going to be addressed in the Omagh area as it currently stands. So I propose that we write to the acting divisional manager, David McKinley, and also the infrastructure minister, Nicola Mallon, seeking an intervention because it really augurs badly for the rest of the autumn and the winter up ahead. We need mechanisms whereby urgent work can be carried out, and we need to establish how is this interruption impacting on the planned schedule and programme, and how this can be mitigated. You know, what mechanisms can be introduced I understand that some small works can be carried out, but it involves almost a mini procurement exercise every time. There's lots of urgent repairs needing to be carried out, significant resurfacing. If I was to name 3 roads, and everybody could name 23 roads, but the Kevlin Road in Oma, the Circular Road, and the Craigan Road, even in the built-up area of Carrickmore, outside the businesses there on that stretch in Craigan Road, but Kevlin Road, Circular Road, and Craigan Road, all of these roads need resurfacing schemes. So how are they being impacted? It really augurs badly. So really what I'm saying is we need a timeline for when this will be resolved, this legal action that is holding back the resurfacing in the Oma area. And we would like the Minister's attention and the acting divisional manager's attention to remedy this crisis situation. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor McElduff. I have Councillor Gardy coming in. Are you coming in to second that, Councillor Gardy?
Absolutely, Chairman. I'm in to second that wholeheartedly and support the comments of Councillor McElduff, and where we here in the West cannot be forgotten about, and where we as local councillors get this constantly in our ears, and rightly so, by our constituents. So therefore, we do need this addressed as a matter of urgency. So therefore, I'm happy to second his proposal here tonight, and I appreciate him for bringing it to the attention of us. We're all very aware of it, but I think we need to keep it on the table at all times. We're all lobbying everybody from our own personal point of view, but this is something that we need to, as a council, collaboratively contact the relevant people and divisions and minister to get this highlighted, and hopefully we'll have some results on the back of it. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And we've had the proposed and seconded. Councillor Thompson, if you keep your comments very short. Because I'm coming
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in, and I do support the comments made previously by Councillor McAduff and Councillor Gardy. I fully support the proposal. Just with regard to the roads mentioned, I'm not going to go to roads in specific, but you only have to look at the town centre of our county. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Members, we've heard it proposed and seconded. Anybody in disagreement, please put up their hand now. Okay, that's passed. Councillor O'Coffey?
Can I clarify whether this is a request for contractors or this work to be done within the existing road service staffing? Thank you, Chair.
Councillor McElduff, are you quite happy to include that in your...
Yeah, absolutely. No problem with the
Councillor
query
Gardy?
being added.
Councillor Gardy? Happy to second.
Absolutely. And if anyone is in any doubt, Chairman, I have mechanisms to get the work done out of the remit of the executive, where we can get this aligned to, which I've alluded to earlier, to members within the chamber that fell on deaf ears. But just all I have to do is give me a ring and I can get that sorted. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Sorry,
Chair, it's just very briefly to clarify, this is a procurement for an external contractor that has fallen through. So this will be there for I'm assuming of Councillor McElduff's proposal, for a similar intervention to be put in place. That's certainly my interpretation of what Councillor McElduff has proposed.
Chair, again, I would be better here at highlighting the problem than proposing technical solutions. I think the Minister and the acting divisional manager need to come up with mechanisms to ensure that we are not left behind and that our roads don't become third world condition roads in the next few months, and
okay, right.
Thank you, Chair.
Point taken. Thank you, Councillor McElduff. Councillor O'Coffey will allow you 10 seconds.
Yeah, I think that this work should be done by the road service, which is what we expect from our basic public services, and I don't think it should be outsourced. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we'll leave it as is. You're happy enough, Alison, there with what has been agreed. Okay, members, thank you very much. We've come to the end of the meeting. Obviously, we'll have another long meeting the next time, but I thank you for your cooperation in sometimes difficult.
Can I make a comment? No, or we're too late. Chair? Chair doesn't hear me.